All right, good evening. It's 5:05 on September 15th. We'll call this meeting to order. It's an informational meeting to create the position of city manager. We have a couple of guests here that we'd like to have speak here. Mark Reichman is the city manager for the city of Cortland, and I'll let him give a little bit of more bio of how long he's been there and Corning, I'm sorry. They want to do it, city of Corning. And if we could give an update and then maybe give a presentation. I appreciate you coming, Mark.
Great, thank you. So do you want me to share the screen at this point and start right in?
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, just give a little quick brief introduction about how long you've been in Corning, and maybe I guess some of that you'll be going over with as far as
Yeah, sure. So I'm Mark Reichman, city manager in Corning, and Ian Coyle is on the screen too. Ian is the county administrator in Livingston County. I've been in Corning for 25 years now, and I was a city manager in Maine for 3 years. And I've got a bachelor's in public management, master's in public administration, both from the University of Maine. And I was a city manager in a small community, Calais, Maine, up on the Canadian border for 3 years before I came down here to Corning. And I was planning on staying in Corning like 5 or 6 years, and they haven't kicked me out yet, so I'm still here. So this is a little bit of an unusual long run for managers. You know, I think maybe 5 to 7 is more the norm, but I kind of fell in love with the community and just love living down here in Western New York. And then Ian, how you've been 10 years or so in Livingston?
Yeah, so likewise with Mark, I've been in the profession for about 20 years. I've been in Livingston County as the county administrator since 2008. So I've been here about 14 years. Before Livingston County, I was the village manager in the village of Brockport for about 4.5 years. So,
and education-wise, Ian,
so my bachelor's in political science and my master's is in public administration from the University at Albany.
Okay, and you're working on your doctorate as
well? I'm about 10 years into my doctoral odyssey. If we talk a few years from now, I hope to be able to say that I've completed it. But sort of balancing that with everything else we got going on has been difficult. But I'm getting there, nearing the finish line. And Mark and I are both on the very involved with NICOM. Obviously, the mayor just referenced that the NICOM conference was just this week, New York State Conference of Mayors, but also we're both active in the New York State City County Management Association. So in part, that's why oftentimes one or more of us are sort of asked to do either presentations or Q&As or information exchanges with councils or boards or trustees or like myself, board of supervisors at the county level to ascertain the good, the bad, the ugly about the potential shift to something like what we do as our profession.
Now, is there a lot of changeover you noticed recently in municipalities or counties switching over to the manager type system?
As far as in New York, there's been some exploration on the county level. There has been a couple of counties. Otsego comes to mind, who's fairly recently adopted the position. I think it was via local law to create a county administrator position. I spoke to their board a couple of years ago, so they created it. As far as counties go, I think that's it. Confidentially, there's 2 that have reached out to me that I plan on meeting with, but I'm not sure they're public about their exploration yet. So just in the interest of confidentiality, but there's 2 counties that presently do not have them that are exploring them. On the city side, I know off and on, city of Saratoga Springs has been contemplating it, has had a couple of referendums that frankly have failed on it. The city of Ithaca is considering the I know the form change. I think there's a vote looming on that.
Yeah, I think it's this November's ballot.
This November, yeah. As far as, and there's probably a few downstate that don't come top of mind, but certainly a few. definitely the movement up as far as pluses, even if it's 1, 2, or 3 versus communities abandoning the form.
Now, why do they have to have a referendum? We're just changing our charter. What's the difference in the city of Ithaca, let's say, compared, do you know that?
So it depending on what you're changing in your charter, it may be a mandatory subject of a mandatory referendum. So in Corning, extensive change to the charter, which diminished the authority of the mayor, which is an elected official, which then triggers a mandatory referendum. So that is something you could explore with NICOM, with Wade Beltrama. Wade would be he's an attorney with NICOM, and Wade would be probably the best person to ask about what is the legal process to do that.
So I know in mayor, and when I was in Brockport, I was hired as the village treasurer initially, so the CFO, and we didn't have a village administrator nor a village manager. We had a mayor and a board of 4 trustees. What they did was a local law, and they passed it sort of via resolution to establish the position and then name me to the position. So I've been sort of there at the entry level to see how these things are created. So yes, to Mark's point, it definitely differs, depends on the charter, depends on maybe the existing policies and regs of the city, town, village, or county that happens to be contemplating it. Sometimes the referendum, sometimes the resolution, sometimes the local law.
Yeah, that's what I was researching, is local law and resolution for us. But hold on.
All right. Well, I'll share my screen, and just bear with me. I'm not quite the Zoom master yet on this thing. There we go. Slideshow from the beginning. There we go. So like we said, Ian and I have been doing this over 20 years, and because we're members in the New York State City and County Management Association, sometimes we're called upon by mayors or councils, sometimes chambers of commerce, to just talk about this form of government. We call it council manager form of government, but a lot of in Corning, a lot of my citizens would just call it city manager form of government. I think it's a lot easier for the citizens to get their hands around it. It's more direct. So my council calls it city manager form of government. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to play you a little video. It's like 3 minutes. It's put out by the International City Management Association, ICMA, our national association, which kind of just talks from an elected official's position, from some mayors on the video that are talking about what their city managers do. So you can kind of get an understanding of what we do. And then I'll walk you through, excuse me, kind of how we operate here in the city of Corning, because it's because we're a small municipality like you, I think it's easier to get our hands around. Ian's county would work similar to like the city of Corning. It's just he's just doing it on a much bigger scale. So I think showing the city of Corning is usually the best way, because it's pretty simple to get the concepts across. So let's start with the video. It's called Life Well Run by ICMA, and hopefully the volume works here.
There are things we rarely think about. Little morning rituals. A light to find our way through the dark. A bike trail just down the road. An easy commute. Having a great place to work. But all across America, there are people thinking about those details every day, crafting plans and making the decisions that transform good communities into great ones. They're our professional city and county managers. They know that characteristics like civic engagement, quality housing, vibrant neighborhoods, and solid infrastructure allow business to thrive. In fact, nearly 2/3 of Moody's AAA bond-rated cities are run by a professional manager. From exciting development projects, to curbside recycling programs, to the water for your shower, city and county managers are responsible for the things that help communities thrive. They make tomorrow happen, partnering with elected officials to turn big policy ideas into great achievements.
When we're done making policy, our city manager is focused on turning that into reality.
They're not trying to take on the role of being politicians, but they're the folks that have to, in the end, implement and deliver.
The ability of the manager to help maintain and manage this city in the best possible way is crucial.
While most of us are busy running our lives, professional managers run the communities where we live our lives. So we can all have a place that we're proud to call home. Professional city, town, and county management. It's life well run.
So as you can see, by what the mayors are saying, we're here to help you make policy decisions, and then once you make those decisions as a board, we're there to implement those decisions to the best of our ability. So we're not looking to take credit for projects or initiatives. We're there to support you and to help you make sure you have the information when you're making large community decisions. And then we're there once you make that decision to support it and to implement it to the best of our ability. And that's really what we do, on a daily basis. Really, this form of government, I'll talk a little bit about the early history so you know where this comes from. It combines strong political leadership of an elected body, so the city council in your case, with the managerial expertise of a professional manager, so somebody like me or Ian. And in that way, we're getting kind of the best of both worlds. We're getting that connectivity with the citizens, and politically, what does the citizenry want, and where does the board want to take the community? And then once those decisions are made, the professional expertise of a trained manager. And like Ian and I mentioned, we've been schooled in public administration, so we've been trained to be managers. So this form of government comes really out of the reform movement of the early 20th century. So, if you think 100 years ago and you think about the old Tammany Hall politics, where things were characterized by, nepotism, graft, and corruption, and service delivery was really politicized, depending on how much favor people curried with whoever the political operatives that were in charge of the day found themselves in. And really, if what they found is if you have a lot of corruption and graft and you politicizing the service delivery, you're not going to probably be very efficient and effective. And so there was a movement in the early 20th century to begin professionalizing local government, along with, over the last 100 years, all kinds of other reforms like a state comptroller's office and general municipal law and city finance law and everything else that keeps us on the straight and narrow now. So it's not just this form of government, but there's been many reforms over the last 100 years. But this is kind of where we started as a profession. And we've been traditionally supported by chambers of commerce and leagues of women's voters. They've traditionally, over the last 100 years, supported these conversions to have a manager. So chambers of commerce, kind of traditionally their angle has been, running things more like a business, more efficient, more effective. And leagues of women's voters, their interest is kind of transparency, good government type initiatives. making sure that people have a say and that government's accountable to the people. So traditionally, you think of those two organizations as not having a common interest, but they do in this case. They want things to run efficiently and they want things to be transparent and honest. And in Corning today, in our example, when we changed forms of government in 1995, it was our local Chamber of Commerce and our League of Women's Voters that were out front supporting it. And the Chamber still supports it today. And I think the League of Women's Voters does, but they've just kind of, it's been such a small league here in the last few years. And with COVID, they just haven't been very active. But I think if we rounded up in the room, they would probably still say that their interest still lies in having professional management. So early history, Stanton, Virginia, 1908, adopted this form of government by ordinance. They still have this form of government today in Stanton, Virginia. And Sumter, South Carolina was the first community to adopt it by city charter, so a more permanent way of implementing this governance model. First Canadian city was Westmont, Quebec, and the first large city was Dayton, Ohio. And now the council manager form or city manager form of government has become the most popular form in communities with populations of 5,000 or greater. So I'm from New England. In Maine, there's a lot of managers, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. You see a lot down in like Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, out west, California, Colorado. And then there's some states that are still a little bit more traditional, like New York. So there's some managers up here around the Finger Lakes. And then really the next pocket of managers is down in Westchester County. A lot of village managers down in Westchester. So the role of the manager has been changing. What we do over that 100 years. The first managers are mostly engineers, and I think that's kind of intuitive because you think about service delivery 100 years ago, sanitation, infrastructure, roads, bridges, those types of things. So a lot of our early managers came out of the ranks of public works departments. They were civil engineers. In the 60s and 70s, there was a growth in public administration programs at the universities across the country. And Ian and I teach at various schools part-time in public administration programs. And the curriculum was largely, managers as management generalists. And that's pretty much how Ian and I were schooled as management generalists. And that's evolving a little bit now. So in the late 90s and 2000s, managers became more facilitators. And so I think that's a lot to do with the polarization of politics in the country. And that's even seeped down to the local level in the last 15 years or so. And so, we spend more time facilitating discussions amongst stakeholders, employee groups, the unions, the elected officials. Certainly the majority of our day is still core management as management generalists, but it's changing a little bit, and you see the curriculum in higher ed changing a little bit with a little bit more course emphasis on policy analysis and policy development. And and sometimes when I teach down at Binghamton, I teach a little bit about facilitation skills because I think they'll need that, when they get out on the job. So, mostly it's still core management. I used to have to learn the acronym, POSDA core: planning, organizing, staffing, delegating, coordinating, and like budgeting. I can't remember. It's been like 30 years since I've been in the classroom, but that was just like drilled into our heads, the core management functions that you learned. And we still apply those, today. So I'll run you through just a few slides and then we can open it up for questions. I'm just going to show you the city of Corning's model because it's pretty simple. And again, it'd be similar like where Ian is. He's just doing it on a much bigger scale because he's a county than what I'm doing. So this is our a simplification of kind of our organizational chart. We have a city council. We have a mayor and 8 members of the council. So we have a 9-member board. When I came 25 years ago, we had an 11-member board, but we've gone down to 9. Their first and foremost responsibility is hiring a city manager, and I serve at their pleasure. So at any time they can dismiss me with I think it's like 60 days notice or something in the charter. So I am directly accountable to the board. And so in my city, we have a Department of Administration that I head that has the city clerk's office and the finance office. We have an assessor. We have a director of public safety, and I serve as the director of public safety overseeing our police and fire departments. Fire department is like 17 full-time, about 10 part-time. Police department, I think, is 21 full-time, and then 4 dispatchers and some part-time parking attendants. We have a planning and economic development department, and code enforcement is part of that department. Public works is clearly the biggest department. We have a streets division that's really the backbone of the department. They're patching potholes and plowing the streets, picking up garbage, replacing signs, fixing street lights, the whole 9 yards that DPW does. We have 3 mechanics, I think, in our fleet division, and a water department and a wastewater treatment plant. I have a parks and recreation department because we have 7 parks, 8 parks, a couple of swimming pools, an ice rink, and we do a lot of summer programming with the kids. And we have a senior citizen center for seniors to visit. And we used to have a senior citizen director, but a few years ago when she decided to retire, I merged that under parks as a cost savings measure and assigned one of the park leaders to the senior center to help operate it. And that's worked very, very, very well for us. And the senior center is really popular amongst the seniors. And then our legal department, we don't have a legal department. I farm this out. So we have an attorney in Elmira that I pay on an hourly basis. And so we're a community of 11,000, 101 full-time employees. In a really good year, my legal costs are probably 40,000. I think the highest they've been is 90,000 in a given year, but we usually hover around 50 or 60 is kind of the norm. So it just doesn't make sense for us with our legal needs here in Corning to hire a full-time attorney and put them on staff, and and then potentially need like an administrative assistant or something to go with that. That'd just be too costly for us. So we've traditionally farmed this out, and like I said, probably on average 50 to 60,000 in legal fees. And the council seems to like this approach because it's a lot less expensive, and we're still getting the services we need. And we do call NICOM a lot. We do call Wade Beltramo and John Mancini, that group up there. And I oftentimes call NICOM to do a little preliminary research and really understand an issue before I call the city attorney and start paying a couple $100 an hour. So in our city, this is how it breaks down, and this can be tweaked, depending on the community. But like I said, we have a mayor and 8 councilmen. First and foremost, they appoint and remove a manager. Like I said, I serve at their pleasure. They set policy as a legislative body, so not individually, and they set that through local laws, ordinances, and resolutions. And they enact those policies solely through the office of the city manager, and then I delegated it out to staff. And I provide them with policy advice. I don't belong to any political party. I'm a blank. And I my job is to give them, kind of an unbiased set of recommendations, pros and cons of various alternatives for them to pick. And, it may be, alternative A and B or A, B, and C on a subject matter. And I may say, here's what I see as the pros and cons of each. And I might say, but I recommend, you pick B for these reasons. Most of the time they agree with me because most of the stuff is straightforward. Sometimes there's a disagreement and they might pick option C or option A, and that's fine. I've given my unbiased opinion to the best of my ability, and then it's my job, once they make a selection, whether I agree with it or not, to click my heels and salute and make sure it gets done. And it's real clear to the staff what was selected and where we're going. So after every council meeting, I have a staff meeting to go over what happened in the council meeting and start putting into motion, what they decided. We do that, actually do that night of the council meeting. I meet with my staff afterwards to debrief and start moving. So the council's role is to adopt an annual budget. I put it together, present it, they tweak it the way they want it and adopt it, and then I implement it. And members of the council don't have any administrative authority. So they can call and make inquiries. They can ask, questions, what is our fund balance? They may be looking for information, but they can't direct assignments. So they can't give people research projects or tell them which street to pave or something of that nature. So my role in this city is I'm the chief executive officer of the city. And like I said, I provide the council with policy advice, and that is complete and objective information on various alternatives. Once they make a choice, I implement the policies established by the council. I recommend the budget. So by May 1st each year, I have to have a budget proposal to the council. And then they spend the month of May in workshops talking about it and tweaking it to their liking. And then they adopt it in June. And then our budget year starts July 1st. I start administering it July 1st. I'm the appointing authority for all personnel. So I appoint all the police officers, firefighters, clerical workers. And then I appoint all of the department heads subject to the council's approval. So department heads have to be confirmed by the council. And so I'm looking for a finance director right now and doing the interviews, and what that will wind up looking like at the next council meeting is before the council meeting, I will provide information on the candidate that I'm appointing to the council. They'll get that delivered to their homes and have about a week to look at it. And then before the council meeting, we have like a little reception, little refreshments in the conference room where, about an hour and a half before the meeting, the council can come in, they come in kind of casually as they get into the building, stop by, meet the person, and ask them any questions that they want to ask that candidate before they vote at that night's council meeting. And that process has worked very well. And I think the council, the council likes that process, and to have the ability to meet the candidates, before the meetings. And then I oversee the daily operations. So, all the good and the bad and the ugly that come with the daily operations of, triumphs that we have, great successes, and then, frustrations with, whatever the latest unfunded mandate of the day is from Albany, or whatever the pressures of the day are. So I kind of coach the department heads and work on those daily issues. So I'm just going to give you a real kind of simplistic model to kind of, so you can visualize this. This is my mayor likes this model, and he likes me to show this model to staff and the council because he thinks it helps them understand each other's roles. And so there's a retired facilitator from Corning Incorporated that lives in my community, and every once in a while. He has no interest of being on the council, the planning board. He does not want to be, here at City Hall, but he's a really good citizen. And, many of my councilmen know him. People really like him. And he volunteers his time on occasion to help me with modeling different workflow processes or going into departments and facilitating things. And so if several years ago, he was, I think he was helping me with something in the Public Works Department. And we started this side conversation about the role of the council versus the staff and how do we explain this to people. And so Mike kind of over a couple of week period, we had coffee on and off, and we came up with this model and put it on a slide. And like I said, my mayor likes this because it helps us explain things to the council and the staff about who does what. So if you think of, traditionally, the policy administration dichotomy where, policymakers are on one side and administrations on the other, that's kind of the traditional view. And, what that would look like is, council's up here and staff is down below. And, that's the kind of the two sides of the fence. This is kind of like, the traditional view, and council sets policy and the staff administers that policy. So in essence, the council's strategic in its thinking. You're setting strategic direction for the community, and the staff is task oriented in implementing that strategy that the council set forth. So it kind of looks like, council's in its sphere and the staff is down its sphere, and there's this bright yellow line between us. And if you read our charter, our city charter, literally, this is what you walk away with. You walk away with, council is in its sphere and we're in our sphere, and, there's a fence between us. And, but in reality, we know the world doesn't work that way. And so, so we took the next step in the model and saying, okay, this is the written word. This is what it looks like in the city charter. Now, how does it really work? Well, how it really works in real life is, there's times that council does get a little bit into the administrative stuff because they have pressures from the public and they have desires and things. And, they lean on the administration a little bit to get things done that they want to see done or get things done in a hurry, and they're not doing anything unethical or asking us to do anything unethical. They're just saying, hey, I'm getting a lot of phone calls on this. Can you, we really need to move this up, because the constituents in my ward are upset and they've been waiting long enough. Or, I'm working on this issue and I need a little bit of research, can we allocate staff time to a particular need that I have? And, most of the time, 99% of the time, they're all reasonable requests, and we absolutely, no problem, we'll get it done because we understand they have pressures. Likewise, staff has a lot of policy expertise. We're schooled in public administration, and my planning director has a master's in public administration with, courses in policy work, and so do I. And so, sometimes we're into the policy end of things, pushing them on proper policy that we think is necessary to effectively, govern the city. And so that's the reality. They need our assistance because we're subject matter experts in the various areas. But at the end of the day, it's their decision, they're voting. And so really, that's more how it works. And so then the real question becomes, where there's an overlap, that's the potential source of friction. And how do we all get along in the sandbox and that overlap area in the middle of these two spheres? And that's the role of the mayor and myself. And the mayor and I talk every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day, and we talk about these things, and maybe staff isn't going fast enough for council, and I need to talk to staff about going faster, or maybe council wants us to go faster and it's unrealistic, and I explain that to the mayor and say, Mayor, I know they want to go faster, but our plates are over full right now. We have these other priorities that council set. We've got to get that done first. And we need to slow up the train here a little bit. And he'll go back to the council and explain that. And so there's this back and forth, kind of like a little healthy tension on a daily basis. And the mayor and I kind of manage that space together, that overlap, and it works very well. And council members, come to the mayor. My council's not shy. They come to the mayor, and sometimes they come to me and they express their views and their concerns. And likewise, I bring to the mayor concerns of the staff, and then the two of us kind of work out what we think is realistic. And then I talk to the staff and he talks to the council, and in that way, we're working together for common goals, and we're working, professionally, and it reduces the friction tremendously, and we get a lot accomplished here in the city of Corning because of this. But I just wanted to show you this model because I think sometimes people think of it as the council's on one side of the fence and the staff's on the other, and it's really a partnership, and there's a little bit of overlap. That's how life works, and you just got to figure out how to make that overlap work. And wanted to show you this because my mayor really likes this and always has me show it to council and staff as a way of explaining how we need to work around here. So this is kind of ingrained in my staff's heads. This is how the mayor and I have agreed we're going to work. So they get it. So I guess we'll just, Mayor, we'll just open it up to questions. Ian and I will try to answer anything we can.
I appreciate it. That's a good explanation, because I think, you get the mom and dad kind of scenario probably with the mayor and with the doing that. So this makes it clear that you are working together, and that's probably why it's so helpful to have that.
Right.
For sure. I'll open it up. Mary Claire or Billy, do you have anything? Any question? Yeah.
So I had a question, Mark. Is your mayor full or part-time?
He is part-time. He does have an office in City Hall. And when I first came here, there were city councilors who didn't want the mayor to have an office in City Hall. And my viewpoint was, that's up to you as a board. When I was in Maine as a city manager, the mayor did not have an office in City Hall. But if council wants the mayor to have an office in City Hall, we will make sure there's office space. If they don't, then that's the decision of the board. And I left that to them. And there was, they talked about it, and they decided that, the mayors would retain an office in City Hall. And so I've been with 5 mayors now, I think, since '97, and they've all had an office. And it's worked absolutely fine. But the mayor's here probably 10 hours a week, maybe, sometimes 20 hours or a little more, depending on what's going on. The one thing I do like about it is when I'm talking to the mayor, I can say, hey mayor, are you swinging by tomorrow? You can be in the office tomorrow? And he'll be like, yeah, I'll be in around 10 o'clock. Hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time at 10 o'clock? Yeah, sure. I know when he's coming in. He doesn't have to, we're not making a special arrangement, a special appointment. I know when he's around. And so I know when his office is right next to mine in the same hallway. So I know when he tells me when he's coming, and I know when I can go sit down with him and bang out some work. So that it's worked with the mayor having an office, but he's classified as part-time.
So that would be a huge paradigm shift for the city of Portland to go. And the problem we're having right now, and I can say this, we had a part-time mayor and it didn't work. So, and we're having to deal with issues because of that part-time mayor. So it's just a huge paradigm shift for the city of Cortland, don't you think, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, Scott is, we technically have a part-time mayor, but Scott's full-time, and that's what he does. I mean, that's just how he works.
Yeah.
I mean, technically our mayor is a part-time mayor, but he is a full-time, Scott he does, he works full time. Our other mayor did not. He had another job. So, that's the problem is control and in this to see what's going on and actually running it smoothly. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. And, depending on, so, but the same pains here, so the mayor was, the mayor was the chief executive officer before 1995. There was no manager. And they switched forms of government in 95. Our first manager was Suzanne Kennedy. And then I'm the second manager. So, this city also had those transitional pains. And I think, early on, the mayor was spending, I'm guessing probably nearly full time. And I know the first mayor that I served with, Mayor Freese, was here almost full time. And that was 25 years ago. And then because they were transitioning forms of government and trying to make it work. And then over time, the burdens on the mayor's office subsided as the administration got more orderly and more organized. And now it's part-time. Oh, although there is a couple of weeks where I think Bill would tell you it's like full time. His phone's ringing off the hook, and he's got things to do, and if there's a hot topic in town. But largely, it's part time at this point. But that's been a transition. It didn't start out that way.
So what does the mayor actually do?
So first and foremost is the mayor is helping guide the city council. So he's setting, he runs on a platform, and whether that's infrastructure improvement, controlling taxes, whatever the platform the mayor runs on, and he's elected by the citizens as a whole. And so he's trying to effectuate that policy platform by guiding the council's discussions and through his appointments to various committees and commissions of people that are favorable to his policy positions. So he's steering, largely helping steer policy direction. And then I am administering that policy direction once it's adopted by council. But he plays a large role in steering policy direction, talking to counselors about what we need to do, how we're going to handle. We have an upcoming comprehensive plan update. We haven't updated our comp in 20 years. And so the mayor wanted to get to start this summer, and I was like, time out, slow up. I don't have enough staff to keep up with that. And so he said, so he said this was last month, he said, how about we start in January? Can the staff be ready in January? I said, yep, absolutely. Give me 6 months. We'll be ready to do the update of the comprehensive plan. And then he will appoint members of the council and members of the public to that comprehensive planning committee that will, steer the direction of the city in a comp plan for the next 10 to 15 years. And so he spends a lot of time on those issues, deciding what issues need to be researched by committees, coming up with the committee charges of what they should be researching and what they shouldn't, so that there's clear policy charges. He spends a lot of his time just steering policy direction, and then the rest of his time he's spending time with me, talking about council preferences and where are we going and how are we going to time this out, and what does staff need for resources that council is going to need to be voting on. So he's sharing information, he's guiding policies, and then just the normal duties of a mayor, which is going to NICOM meetings, talking to the Chamber of Commerce, representing the city, in various functions throughout the city, which sometimes seems to be endless, the number of requests to do that type of stuff. So he's got his hands full. He's got a lot of work, I have people sometimes who say to me, but you're the manager. I'm like, yeah, I'm the manager, but it's a partnership. You have to, it's a partnership between political leadership and managerial expertise. And they coexist and they support each other. And you can't, it doesn't work well if you have one without the other. If you have great, policy direction and expertise, but no managerial expertise to implement it, it's going to be hard to get stuff done. Somebody's got to crank out the work. And then on the flip side, you could have great managerial expertise, but if you don't have strong political leadership, you're probably not going to get much done either. So it's really that partnership. And every mayor has different styles. Every manager has different styles. One of the reasons why I think I've been successful in Corning with 5 different mayors is I adapt to everybody's style. Sometimes I have mayors that want to be more out front and want to be the face of the community, and they want to be in front of the media all the time. And okay, that's fine. I take a step back, and I've got plenty to do. So I've got plenty to fill my time. I'll work on other things. And then there's times that I've had mayors that aren't comfortable in that role and they want the manager more out in the lead and in front of the media. That's fine too. I can do that as well. So I adjust to whoever the voters decide that they want as their mayor. That's my job. My job is not to buck the will of the voters. My job is to accept the will of the voters and to adjust my style to whoever they pick.
Mark, now, can you maybe explain what are the issues we have? I think is beneficial to it is the communication with all the department heads. How many department heads do you have? I mean, just rough number 10.
I have 9. I have 9 department heads. So I have a formal department head meeting once a month, and where we're largely getting ready for our council meets the first Monday of the month. And so a couple weeks before the council meeting, we have a standing department head meeting, and we go over everything that's going to be on the council agenda and start getting things ready. I'll be looking at stuff. Where's the legal review on this? Why didn't, somebody called the city attorney and get this? It's missing, and we'll, and I'll help, department heads draft memos and things, all the information the council needs. And then we'll talk about, at the end of the meeting, general issues, policy changes that are coming up, new policies, things that I think they need to be aware of. Sometimes down to the stop parking in the police department spots, park where you're supposed to, your employees are on the wrong side of the lot, so I mean, if it has to get down to a nitty gritty issue, well, then it does, and I bring it up. And then we just kind of have a round table where, police chief may need some of the department heads to know an issue or talk about an issue. And so we have a discussion. So those meetings last, like an hour, a little over an hour. And then on a daily basis, I meet with them individually. They come into my office, they call me, text me. So the city clerk, I don't have to have a lot of communication with her because, the systems are so set and standardized that, she's got a really good grasp of it and doesn't need a whole lot of guidance. She's a very seasoned city clerk. Police department's got a lot going on. I'm talking to the police chief 1 to 2 times a day, every day. So it just depends on the department head and the operation of what's going on. I talk to some of them more than others, but my door is always open. They all have my cell phone number. They're not afraid to call me if they, hey, heads up, this might be coming your way, Mark, or hey, I need to talk to you about something. I've got an issue that I need some guidance on. So those conversations just go on, throughout the month, and then the one formal meeting a month.
But typically the mayor wouldn't go to your department head meetings, right? You just have them with them yourself. So you're that buffer to stay between, yeah.
Yeah, it's just me and the department heads and my secretary. My secretary comes to all the meetings because she needs to be in the loop, because a lot of times things fall onto her desk. So she comes to all the meetings.
Okay.
But when I first came, my former secretary, I didn't have initially come to a lot of the meetings, and then it was like she was getting frustrated because she wasn't in the loop, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that might help if she was sitting in the meetings and knew what was going on. So
That's kind of the situation I have. They have no idea. They don't understand the context.
right, they've got to understand the context, and they need to know what's coming their way, because they're the primary call taker. I mean, I'll certainly answer the phone when she's not here, but 90% of the time she's handling stuff. She's we just call her a big traffic cop, all day long, people coming in, phone calls coming in, and she's making appointments, directing people to the right people. People call for the mayor, and she'll take messages for the mayor, or oftentimes he'll call and talk to me, and then sometimes he'll call and talk to her and say, hey, what's going on? And she'll say, hey, this gentleman's been trying to get a hold of you since yesterday, here's this phone number. Oh, okay, I'll call him right now. So she helps the mayor too.
Billy, you have a question?
Yeah, you're hiring a finance director. You don't do finance. You're hiring a finance director, you said?
Yeah. So here's the difference in a small municipality. So I hold the title Chief Financial Officer. My finance director holds the title of Chief Fiscal Officer. So it's like the difference between a CEO and like a Chief Operating Officer or a Chief Administrative Officer. So small municipality, I'm driving financial strategy. So I'm driving the budget strategy. I'm managing the debt service. The capital planning, though I'm driving big picture stuff. And the finance director is essentially operating like a chief accountant. So her job is to make sure that transactions are recorded appropriately, that reporting is done consistently, that we have proper internal controls. She's handling daily cash flow management, spot auditing the procurement system. And so I'm more strategic and she's more task oriented. So when I'm developing the budget and that type of strategic direction, and then I kind of liken it to, she's pulling the levers and tuning the knobs on the systems.
Do you do grant writing or no? Who do you do?
Yeah, so I do some, but I don't do as much as I used to. This is an interesting approach we took in Corning. So like 25 years ago, I first come here, there's kind of limited staff capacity. I hire a planning director, and he was a wonderful planning director, stayed with me for 10 years. And he was, I was sharing grant writing responsibilities with him. I was kind of overwhelmed with some of it. He was overwhelmed. And we had a sit down, and I said, we need more grant writers, Jim. And he said, we're not getting any more grant writers, Mark. It's you and me. And I said, well, then we need to create them. And so Jim and I set out on this course of turning our department heads and some of the staff that was interested into little grant writers. And so we just started training other staff to write some grants and administer grants. And over the years, even after Jim left, I've kept it up. And so the fire chief writes some grants. My planning director or my rec director has taken an interest in it. He's been writing some grants. The chief of police writes some grants. So, we'll handle the bigger stuff like the federal grants or things that are more complicated, but there's a ton of low hanging fruit, small grants. And we kind of train department heads to do it. And, they come to us, and my rec director, I started him out on just little Walmart grants, like $500 from Walmart, and then we kind of graduated him up. He kind of got the hang of that, and he does kind of some of the community foundation stuff, does those grants. They're a little bigger. And then now he's been dipping his toes in the water on state grants, which are more, much more sophisticated. So, we just start him out slow, and we just groom him and coach him, and they enjoy it. They feel like they're accomplishing something, and the council's always amazed at how many grants we bring forward on the agenda. So we didn't have it. We didn't have the capacity, and council wasn't going to, hire more planning directors, more grant writers. Is not in the cards. So we just created our own.
Thank you.
Yep. We're really good at an executive at Corning Incorporated who's since passed away. He was, I used to work with him on stuff. He was doing community affairs stuff for the company. And he said, you guys are really proficient at spinning gold thread out of straw. I said, yeah, that's what you do in local government. We're not Corning Incorporated. We're not a Fortune 500 company. I can't just go out and hire what I think I need. I can't. I don't have the resources. So yeah, we make the gold thread out of straw. You just have to do that to survive.
Now there seems to be so many more opportunities for, more complex grants.
Yeah. Some communities go out and get some engineering firms or certainly consultants that do it. I guess at some point, if we just got overwhelmed, we might do that. But, between me and the planning director and our public works director has come so far. He can handle federal grants now. He's been amazing. He's probably been with us for almost 10 years now. And he's just, and he enjoys it. He's kind of sunk his teeth into it.
Are you a year by year contract with you, or is it every 2 years? What do you got?
My contract is open-ended. So I'm here until the council decides I'm not here, or until I give them like 60 or 90-day notice to leave. And then what we've been doing is negotiating my raises on a 4 to 5 year basis. So my contract, I'm at the end of a 5 year, which ends next July 1, June 30th. So I'm at the end of 5 years. If we don't reach agreement, there's provisions that I get, like some type of cost of living adjustment raise until we reach agreement. So I just keep rolling forward. We'll probably negotiate another 4 or 5 years. I just keep rolling forward until the day they say, we want to change managers. And I'm an at-will employee. They don't have to give me any reason. They can just say, Mark, we want to go in a different direction. Likewise, I can say to them, thanks very much. I've enjoyed my time here, but I'm going to go do something else. So that's how we've left it for 25 years. It's worked well for us. And, I say we do a 5-year agreement. The 5 years is just my compensation for 5 years. In year 2 of the agreement, they can say we want to change courses, or I could say I want to go do something different. So it is truly just at will employment with me.
All right, thank you. Do you have anything else, Mary Claire?
No,
No?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mark. It's very helpful. If anybody else has anything after this, we'll get back to you, whether it's shoot you an email or whatever, but I appreciate your guys' bringing this time and this explanation is, I think your last, the economy was the best answer to showing exactly what it's about. But I think it helps get a general understanding. I mean, our finance team that we have, go to Billy's question, our finance team is, we kind of have a formulated structure right now where everybody has their roles and places, but we just need that we would have to delegate some authority to somebody to
Sure.
really oversee that area, but we actually have a senior accountant and, you know, and some very competent people to be able to handle that. It's just how do you clear that up? So that has to happen, but and then the charter requires you to have that, so that
Right.
separation of the CEO. That's the only real charter change that we would have to make.
I think one of the last things I'd like to say, Mayor, and I think, you know, you've experienced it, you know, as a mayor, you've seen it, is things are just getting so much more complex, and the pressures on City Hall coming from all areas, you know, from the state on the economy is, I think, you know, without a manager, the mayors are getting overwhelmed, you know, and I look at my mayor and I think he'd just be swamped if I wasn't here to help, you know, and I just don't know how he would do it all, because it's too much that's coming, you know, down to local government at this point. It's you know, and you know, I think being a mayor 30 years ago is a lot different than today. Things are just, the workload is much heavier, and the issues are much more complex. And so me being here frees my mayor up to deal with the council and setting policy direction and you know, deciding what they want for the community, instead of, you know, him taking you know, phone calls from constituents and dealing with, you know, administrative issues between departments. He doesn't have to do that. You know, he can focus his time with the council and with the Chamber of Commerce and the community, and deciding where we need to go, and, you know, advocating through NICOM and alike. And because he knows on a daily basis, I'm here, you know, mopping up the rest of the stuff that just needs to get done. And that's fine. I like that role. That's, you know, I enjoy mopping up the stuff. You know, that's what I'm trained to do. So, but it frees him up to pursue where he and the council want the community to go.
Yes, for sure. And I'm trying to lead the charge to do this, so nobody recognizes it more than I do.
Yeah.
But, the layers and the complexity of the reporting functions and all the other requirements from state, federal, and, you know, grant administration, keep going, you know. And then you have personnel issues, you have, you know, department heads, there's always something to do, that's for sure. So it does split that load and helps divide that out.
I'll leave you with one funny story. I had a mayor in Calais, Maine. This is 25 years ago. And he used to come to my office after every council meeting. Now, Calais is a small town up on the Canadian border, down East Maine, you know, kind of salty attitudes, you know, think of the old down East fishermen, you know, that's like the community I lived in. And we had a hard council meeting, and he came into my office and he was just fed up. And I can't remember what we were being beat up for by some citizens, but it was a rough night. And he comes in and he said, "Mark, why would you want to go to 6 years of college to come do this?" I said, "Well, Mike, you pay me well, you know, why would you come down here for," and I think he was getting paid through $600 a year. "Why would you come down here for $600 a year and put up with us?" And he laughed. He's like, "Yeah, you got a good point." And I said, "I know why you do it, and you know why you do it." And he said, "Yes." He says, I live here. It's my community. I do this because it's my duty. I'm not doing it, you know, because I'm paid. I put up with it because I love Calais. And I said, "Exactly. That's why you do it, Mike." You know, but it was just, you know, we're kind of the hired guns, and it's just a situation where I've just fallen in love with the community, and I love it as much as the next person, and I just want to be here, and that's why I've been here for 25 years. And the mayors come down to do it just like the councilmen come down to do it. They don't come down to get rich. They come down because they love their community. It's your community, and you feel it's your duty, and you can contribute. And so it's really, you know, I feel kind of honored that people who donate their time like this, elected officials, have selected me and entrusted me to help them. So that's kind of how I see it.
Well, perfect. I don't think you can end it any better than that. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate Ian's time, and thank you everybody else for doing it. If we have any questions, we'll get them to you.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much. And Ian and I are always around if you need us.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
See ya.